For 2 years, I was the only Jew in the classroom studying in Arabic with Arabs, and that was an experience that blew my mind.
Shalom and welcome to another episode of In Our Neighborhood, and I'm joined today by a very unique, fascinating individual, Avi Shalev, the author of this book, The Only Jew in the Room. Not today, Avi. And Avi, you're a unique character, both a veteran of the Israeli Defense Forces of over 20 years, and a student of Arabic, and a student in a Muslim Arab university. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Avi, if you had 1 minute to explain what is it that we Israelis or non-Arabic speakers miss about the Palestinian population around us, what would it be?
I think we miss the fact that they are not Israelis, they're not Jews, they don't come from our background. Mm-hmm. They think differently, they see the world differently, and in order for us to actually understand them, we have to jump out of our shell and jump into their shoes, into their boots, and experience what it is to be an Arab. You don't have to accept their narrative, you don't have to agree with them, but in order to understand them, you have to get out of your, let's say, comfortable environment in Israel, in the Jewish society, in the way we think, and you have to make an effort. And we don't make that effort today.
Why don't we?
I think this is a problem that that characterizes both Israelis and Palestinians. From my experience, Palestinians misunderstand us as much as we misunderstand them, because we are different, and it's actually a universal problem. Yeah. It's very difficult to understand another culture, another people, and it takes a while before you really understand that we are so different.
Well, we're two people living in the same land, sharing a history for over 100 years at this point. For much of the population. We've shared conflict, we've shared a semblance of peace. Where is it that the operating system is fundamentally different between the Palestinian population and the Jewish Israeli population?
It's as if we live in a different environment. Yes, we live in the same country, in the Holy Land, but we have a totally different experience. So, of course, it's the language. We speak a different language. Very few Israelis speak Arabic. In fact, from the research that has been done up to now, less than 0.5% of Israelis actually can read or speak Arabic. That's a negligent number. Most young Arabs and Palestinians don't speak Hebrew. We have a different faith, a different religion. So we draw our values and the way we look at the world from different perspectives, from different holy books. We see this land and its history. They see a different land and a different landscape and history.
So you, and I want to dive a bit into your story, you just wrote this book called The Only Jew in the Room, which is a very catchy story. And you write this book at the back end of serving 18 years in the IDF, in the entity that communicates on a daily basis with the Palestinian population in Judea and Samaria. And you go and study Islamic studies, and you come to the conclusion that you don't know enough about the people that you're talking about, writing about, and working with.
Correct.
And tell me, what does that feel like? How do you come to the conclusion you don't know enough? Because one would say, in Israeli population, of all the people that are here, you're probably at the top of the list of the people that do know what's going on, that know their life, that know their mindset, that know the values that cause them to do things that trigger them, I guess.
I realized that in order to really understand Arabs, you've got to study in Arabic, with Arabs, from Arabs. So I actually looked for an Islamic or an Arab university or college where I could be the only Jew in the room and immerse myself in Palestinian culture. And once I finished my master's degree in Germany, in Berlin, I looked for a place I could blend in and study as another person in the room who kind of feels immersed in the culture. And I found it in Al-Qasimi. It's an Arab Islamic college in Israel. It teaches education. I was the first Jew to ever register there. There are about 2,500 Israeli Arabs, all Muslims, studying in the college, undergraduate and MA degrees in education, all scheduled to be teachers in the Arab-Israeli schools. And I was the first Jewish guy who knocked on the door and said, I want to study here. And I was accepted. And I kind of realized from pretty much the first week that the opportunity to understand and learn from a completely different experience. And I started writing a journal for myself. And this turned into a book eventually. And by the time I finished my studies, I actually could publish a whole book about my experience as the only Jew in the room.
What does that sound like? Like, give us an example of a couple things where, again, you're coming after 2 decades of daily exposure to this population or similar to this population. What were the thoughts or emotions or predispositions you were coming to the table with? Where were you wrong, and what did you encounter that didn't match your expectation?
First of all, fear. Fear
on your side or
on my side, on their side.
Really?
Going into a Muslim town, an Islamic college, where I'm completely on my own. Immediately identified as an Israeli Jew, trying to fit in, fearing because it's not my natural habitat. My family was pretty much in hysteria. They tried to convince me not to study there. They thought I was committing suicide. They said, you'll be kidnapped, you'll be killed, you'll be murdered. I mean,
mind you, this is inside Israel.
Inside Israel. It just gives you a perspective of how far we are, how divided we are. There are a lot of questions, I was asked that were kind of, that blew your mind. Why are you here? Aren't you afraid? But I think after a while, a couple of weeks, we got used to each other. And I spent the next 2 years trying to learn. Yes, I was so-called an expert, serving 24 years in the field. But that was an opportunity to sit in class and listen.
So now that you have this comprehensive experience, which is very unique when you think about it on many, many levels, did something change in the way you look at Muslim Arabs in Israel or in the Palestinian Authority or in Palestinian Hamas-controlled Gaza? Did something change in your mind, or was it just more information?
No, I think I was able to complete a more comprehensive understanding of Arab society, and also the difference between Israeli Arabs and Palestinian Arabs, because I was kind of more focused on Palestinian Arabs in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
And here I was with Israeli Arabs. Most of them, by the way, did not speak a word of Hebrew. So that was a big shock for me. Young Arabs living in Israel, Israeli citizens, can hardly speak Hebrew. So you can see that the
disconnect is enormous.
The disconnect between the two societies is just growing. It wasn't like that 30 years ago, but now, because of social media, everyone being able to connect to his own source of information, we don't meet in the same place. So the opportunity for me to ask them questions about their life, about their faith, about their belief, and to answer questions that they would ask me. The fact that I was the first Israeli Jew to ask or to register in this college that has been operating in Israel for 40 years is also very telling of our society. We don't really make an effort to understand Arabs. We invest most of our efforts in technology. We think that AI and cyber will give us the answers. But understanding culture, religion, and the people is not a question of AI and cyber. You have to really understand custom and religion and values before you can, have a good understanding of a people, of a society.
You mentioned previously, you said October 7th proved how little we knew, or I guess we were surprised by the fact that we knew very little about the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip. What is it that we're missing? What piece of information do we not have, or pieces of information? Because I remember this, and I think most Israelis experienced October 7th as a moment of a very rude awakening, not to the facts, to the fact that we didn't identify the evil that was existent on the other side. We didn't understand the depth of the hatred, the depth of the violence, the depth of the contempt that they had to us as a people and a society.
Yes.
But what do you think that we're missing? What do you think we don't get about how they look at the world?
Well, first of all, we don't make an effort.
Okay.
In Gaza 2 years ago, there was a series which kind of started with the failed Israeli commando operation in Khan Yunis. Israelis trying, Sayeret Matkal, the elite Israeli
True
commando.
story.
A true story.
A true story, yeah.
Started with the failure of this particular operation to plant technologies in the, obviously in the one of the underground tunnels. And over 30 chapters it developed. At the last chapter, Hamas invades Israel, captures all of the Gaza periphery, attacks Re'im, the headquarters of the Israeli Gaza division, and takes it over. And in the last chapter, you literally see the 7th of October, but 2 years ahead. In other words, it was all aired on TV. The plans, the hopes, the aspirations.
Who created the show?
A Gazan company.
Really?
Literally.
Okay, I didn't know
now,
about this.
what was amazing about it is that 6 months after it was aired, it received from Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, the award for the most prestigious or the most successful TV series in the Palestinian media. So here it is, aired on TV. We don't watch it. We don't think about it. We don't try and analyze it.
But just to flip it on the head, what
Yeah.
you're saying is, if Israeli society and intelligence was connected to a greater degree to what's happening in the Palestinians, specifically the Hamas population,
They would not miss it.
they would be able to watch a primetime show that depicts the events of October 7th.
I think that October 7th changed, perhaps forever, the relationship between Jews and Arabs. And it was a responsibility of the IDF to prevent it. And that is, I think personally a disaster and a terribly sad, turn of events, because Jews and Arabs have to live in Israel.
Yeah.
Whether they live in peace or whether they live in this hellish situation where we are engulfed in war, we're going to be living here together.
Yeah.
And therefore, we have to understand each other. Arabs have to understand Israelis, and Israelis have to understand Arabs. And language, the language barrier, I think, is the first thing that we have to deal with. And the fact that nobody studies Arabic, nobody speaks Arabic in Israel. We are an island, surrounded by 300 million Arab speakers.
Yeah.
We don't make an effort to study Arabic. I'm not even talking about our intelligence services that think that AI, and very sophisticated technology can translate or can close the gap. I'm talking about, even being able to converse in the streets.
Yeah.
I have a whole chapter about the Arabic language and the barriers between Jews and Arabs. And I can tell you that in the last 2 years, I've been involved in trying to promote, as an advisor for Baka College, the idea of setting up an Israeli college, academic college in Hebrew in an Arab town, Baka el-Gharbia. We have a phenomenon of thousands and thousands of Israeli Arabs that choose to study in Palestinian and Jordanian universities. They study in Arabic. They study in incredibly hostile universities. And
Hostile in the sense that they're anti-Israeli.
Anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, racist, and very hostile. I'll give you an example. On the 8th of October, I have Arab friends whose kids are studying in Jordan. These kids, that was, first week on campus. They arrived on campus and they were given out sweets. And they were saying, what are we celebrating?
October 7th.
October 7th.
Of course.
Now, these are Arab Israelis who will come back in 3 or 4 or 5 years as doctors or lawyers or engineers.
To Israeli hospitals.
To Israeli hospitals, to Israeli, the Israeli economy, and they will try and fit in. They will have to try and integrate. Now, what future do we face if 15,000 Arab Israelis, get charged with this very radical, anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic education. Now,
a bleak future, I would dare say.
Well, we have to think about it,
Yeah.
and we're not thinking about it. So this is, I think, one of our great challenges. And I in the book I talk about the program of Taglit, which birthright, which brings home from all over the world Jews to visit Israel. I think Israeli Jews and Arabs need a Taglit. They have to discover each other, because we are growing apart, and this is detrimental to our future.
I 100% agree with that statement. I think sort of in line with your thought about the lack of knowledge leading to lack of understanding, October 7th was surprising on many, many fronts, both on Jews misunderstanding their enemies in Gaza, but also in the other way around. The people of Gaza, Hamas, have said this openly. They expected the Arabs of Israel, the Palestinians of Judea and Samaria, and the Hezbollah of Lebanon, and a list of them
To
join in immediately.
Yes.
The army, and I was in reserves on that day, we expected the Arabs, the Palestinians of Judea and Samaria, to rise up in arms like they never had before and join in on the battle.
And they did not.
The Israeli police was expecting the Israeli Arabs, who just a year before that violently rioted against Jews in mixed cities,
Correct.
to rise up, and none of it happened.
21.
And I walked away from that, 7.5 month period in reserves, saying to anyone who asked, I said, if I know one thing after this period, is we don't know. We don't understand the people that we're engaging with. We don't understand their motives. We don't understand their fears. We don't understand what makes them get out of bed and what keeps them in bed. We simply don't understand.
Yes.
And for me, that's it's cause for concern.
It's a wake-up call. And I think Israelis must make an effort to understand the Arab society, and of course Arabs to integrate and understand Jewish society. And I think if we don't do that, if we don't make that effort, the clash or this never-ending war cycle will not end.
What about the opposite direction? You read, write, speak Arabic, you understand their culture, their media. What is it that Hamas and the Palestinians of Judea and Samaria are saying today, post-October 7th? Is there any discourse about them misunderstanding the motives of the Jewish Israeli people, of them misunderstanding our operating system, so to speak?
No, I think they're in complete darkness. And they too don't make an effort to really understand the Jews. I was amazed that that Israeli Arabs and even Palestinians who have access to Israel don't explore it.
Yeah.
Don't try and understand the Jewish psychic. They have their narrative. Their narrative is simple and straightforward. They are the victims. And it's incredible that they don't really make an effort, because they could learn and they could enjoy and they could, flourish. Israel is a great country with great potential, and the Arab world around us is, falling apart.
Yeah.
There's such great potential in Israel. If Arabs would consider changing their mind and joining in, but that really needs a lot of leadership.
Where do you find hope in that? I mean, so we don't end this time on a completely depressing note.
Yes.
You spent the time. You wrote a whole book about your time understanding Arab society in Israel from within, and everything you're describing leads to this mindset of us being monolithic in our nature. Israelis and Jews staying in the exact same place, Palestinians staying in their same place, and us just continue to butt heads against each other repeatedly throughout history. Where's there hope in that?
So there is hope. The question is, where's our leadership? And I think that if we understand reality, if we don't close our eyes, if we don't ignore reality, if we understand the challenges we face, we can present an alternative narrative. and we can push for a different experience. And if you do that, I think you'll gain a lot of legitimacy, because I think in Israel we are looking for leadership. And we're looking for a better future. And this book is not about politics.
Yeah.
It's about the reality of societies in Israel and how we see each other.
Yeah.
And you have to approach it with honesty and open eyes. Some of what you see will be difficult to palate, but it is what it is, and you have to work with what the land offers.
Yeah. I think overall the good outweighs the negative in this country. And if you look hard enough, it's always there. I don't think there's any question.
That's very true.
Your book, just for anyone who's interested in this, can be found on any Amazon shop, both in Hebrew and in English.
Correct.
So Avi, I want to thank you for taking the time to come and to encourage you, because I find it to be refreshing to have someone who has mellow opinions, not extreme to one way or another. I find it refreshing to see someone show interest and empathy and human care to people that are different, without having an agenda, without forcing on them whatever we expect them to be. And I think that's a really good place to start.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Come again.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.